Hi, my name's Paul Grogan and welcome to another Gaming Rules Quick and Dirty review. In this video I am going to be telling you what I think about Concordia, designed by Matt Gertz, published by PD Verlag in 2014, and it's had a number of expansions, and in this video I'm going to be telling you what I think about it. Now, my Patreon supporters who helped make this video possible, they voted on as this game as one of the games that I would review last month, and I'm just getting around to it this month, so apologies for the delay. But here we go. So as I mentioned, I'm going to be covering Concordia, the base game, in this video, but also near the end of this video, I'm going to be covering the expansion sets which have come out for the game since 2014. There's been a number of expansion sets that have come out for the game because it's been very popular, and the reason it's very popular is it's a brilliant game. Concordia is, in my opinion, a masterpiece of a game. The design and the gameplay is elegant and streamlined, and it is one of my top 10 games of all time. I'm embarrassed to say that I don't actually own my own copy of the game. This copy is a friend of mine, Mark. Thank you very much, Mark, for lending me this copy. But it's because a few people in my local playgroup have a copy, so I've never needed to own a copy myself. But I really do need to. And I've decided, after playing this game a couple of times in the last couple of weeks, just to refresh my memory, that it is a game that I am going to get hold of myself, because I think everybody who likes the same kind of games as I do, Concordia should be in their collection. So why do I like it so much? Well, let's give you a quick summary of how the game plays. Basically, this is a game where the setting of the game is it's trading in the Mediterranean, which is funny because that's been kind of a stereotypical joke of Euro games. Oh, it's trading in the Mediterranean. Boring. And that's exactly what, and that joke's been around a long time. But that's exactly what this game is. You will be moving your colonists around the board, which are either land colonists or sea colonists. They'll be moving around this map, and they will be establishing buildings in the various cities on the map, which will produce resources. You will use the resources to build more cities, and you will also use resources to buy cards from this card row. It is a card-driven game. You start the game with a hand of 7 cards, and you will be buying more cards during the game as the game goes on. And then on a turn, it's very, very simple, is you play a card into your discard pile and you do what the card says. And then the next player takes a turn. And there's not that many different cards, and each individual action is actually relatively simple. It's putting them all together in the right order that is where the gameplay is. So yeah, you will play a card, do what it says. On your next turn, you'll play a card, you'll do what it says. Next turn, you'll play a card, etc., etc. Eventually, you will play your Tribune card. Where's my Tribune card? There's the Tribune card. Eventually, you'll play your Tribune card, which gets you your cards back. That process repeats until one player has got all of their buildings on the board, or somebody takes the last card from the card row, because they will get replenished from the deck as cards get taken. And that triggers the end of the game, and then you count up the scores. Now, the way that the scoring works in this game, I think, is a work of genius. And I know not everybody agrees, but the way that the cards work is they have 2 purposes. So every card that you buy has the action on it, which allows you to play it during the game, and it does what it says. But also, at the bottom of the card, it has a scoring thing. And all of the scoring happens at the end of the game. And the scoring is directly tied to the type of card that it is. So, for example, this is a Mars card. A Mars card will give you 2 points at the end of the game for each colonist you have on the board. Right. So if you decide to pick up lots of Mars cards, you want to be getting lots of colonists, and vice versa. If you decide you're going to build lots of colonists, you want to pick up the Mars cards. And I think it's absolute genius, and I don't think I've seen it before in a game, is that the cards that you pick up during the game that give you actions also determine your end of game scoring. There is no other end of game scoring except for the cards. Although you start off the game with 7 cards, so you could say that that is your initial base score. But basically, yeah, the cards that you pick up will determine the points that you will get at the end of the game. And I think that's just brilliant. One of the reasons why I like the game so much, I mentioned at the start that it's elegant and it's streamlined, and they are 2 words that I would use definitely to describe Concordia. It has no rough edges on it. It has no clunky bits. I mean, I love medium to heavy or even heavy complex games. I love playing games, by Vita Lacerda that take 45 minutes to teach and have got so many knobs and whistles on. And it, as I say, it's 45 minutes to an hour to teach the game. And then you play it for 2 or 3 hours and it's just fantastic. And I love that. This is a 5-minute teach, maybe 10 at the most, because, as I say, it's so streamlined. You play a card, you do what it says. And that action is usually fairly simple. But it's the decisions that you have in the game. Although the actions are fairly simple, there's a few of them. One of them moves your colonists around and builds buildings. Another one allows you to trade with the market, which gets you money, but you're limited on what you can trade, so you've got to make decisions there. Another action will allow you to produce in a specific region on the board. Another action will allow you to buy cards from there, etc., etc. So that's pretty much it. There's not that many different actions. And yeah, you can play a game. It's 2 to 5 players. And you can play a game in probably about between an hour and a half. It's not that long a game, and it just hits a really, really nice sweet spot for being able to teach a game fairly quickly and getting a lot out of it. Now, I say it's streamlined and elegant and the rules are relatively simple. The rule book, it's like 4 pages. Okay, there is an extra sheet for setup, but the rule book is 4 pages, and that's it. Because I've pretty much explained to you how the game plays. I just haven't been through all of the different actions. So going on to the cards just a little bit more, because, as I say, a few people really don't like the cards. And one tip, if you've never played this game and you decide that after watching this video, you want to go and play it, make sure the person teaching you explains that the cards are your score. I have heard a number of negative opinions about this game from people who played it. They played it the first time and they were picking cards up and they were doing stuff and they felt they were getting somewhere. And then it came to the scoring and they went, oh, this isn't worth any points because I wasn't doing this and this isn't worth any points. So when I teach the game, and I actually taught the game last night, one of the first things I said was, let's go through how you score points. And I explained in detail how you score points in the game. And the game comes with a reference card, so you can actually see it's there right in front of you for the whole game, how you're going to score points. And that is really important, is you will find people, as I say, playing the game for the first time, they don't pick up cards or they don't pick up the right cards that match what they're actually trying to do. And then they will possibly have a negative play experience about it. But I think it's, as I say, I think it's genius. I think it's a really good idea. I think it works very well. There is the score track, but you only score that at the end of the game. It's just, yeah, really good. Player interaction is what you would expect from a Euro game of this kind. The player interaction is on the board because in 2 ways. First of all, if you were to build a little house where somebody else has a house already, it's going to cost you more. So there is a little bit of a race aspect to getting to certain cities first. The other level of player interaction is that there is a card in here, the prefect, which allows a player to choose a province and produce in that province. Now, the whole province will produce. So if you're in that province as well, you're going to produce. So you watch the other players and you go, yeah, Helen's going over there and that's a really good, and she's going to be producing in there. So I'm going to build in there as well. And now that every time she produces, I'm going to get something out of it as well. So that's the perfect level of player interaction for me. You have to be aware of what the other players are doing. I mean, there's no blocking of spaces or anything like that. But their actions will influence you. There's also cards from the card row, and I suppose somebody else could take a card that you wanted, but they're only going to really take it if it's a card that they want as well. But you will find some people competing for cards, so that can be important as well. So yeah, perfect level of player interaction. Let's go on to the rule book and the components. Components-wise, I think is really good. I particularly like this style of artwork. I know some people might think it's bland and boring. I think it's functional, it's very clear, but also I like the style of it. I also like the graphic design layout on the cards. I just think it's nice and concise, it's all there. The coins are good, and it surprises me these days, because what you've got is you've got the 10s, you've got 5s, you've got 2s, and you've got 1s, right? And they are different coloured and different sizes. And it surprises me these days that you still find games coming out with like 5s and 1s that are the same size. And it's such an obvious thing to do. The game did come under a lot of criticism because the original front cover of the box, this is the new edition, the original front cover is awful. The artwork is just, really, yeah, not really good at all. So yeah, components-wise, all fine. All of the wooden pieces, different shapes, really good. That could have easily been cubes, but it's not. It's custom wooden shapes. So yeah, components-wise, perfectly fine, all good. These cards are sleeved, but the card quality is good. Rulebook-wise, I've been fairly critical of some games from PD Verlag about their rulebooks, and this one is fine. Now, whether this is because this is a later printing and all of the weird things were mixed up, but what they do is they have a habit of making very concise rules. Some of the early ones, and I remember criticising Transatlantic terribly because it was an awful rulebook. But this rulebook is fine. It's, as I say, it's very concise, it's very short. There you go. There's 4 pages, job done. There's no fluff. There are some examples and stuff like that, which is, you know, really good. There's an example for each of the actions, but yet there's no fluff in there as to, there's nothing that isn't needed. It's absolutely fine as a rule book. And as I say, the game comes with a separate setup sheet. That's the German side. There's the English side. So yeah, the setup sheet tells you how to set the game up. And I'm in 2 minds about this because not many games have separate setup sheets, but it actually does work quite well because somebody else can be setting up while somebody else is going through the rulebook. So that's Concordia, apart from, to mention the fact that the board is 2-sided. This is the Mediterranean side, and the other side there is an Italian map. All of the maps are for 2 to 5 players, but some maps will work better depending on the number of players in the game. And there's a great thread on BGG, which I'll put a link to in the show notes below, which basically has had people voting on which map is best for a certain number of players. I believe that this map is best with 4 or 5 players, and the map on the other side is better with sort of 3 or 4 players. So that is it for Concordia, the base game. Now let's touch on some of the expansions. And first up is Concordia Salsa. Now, speaking of terrible box art, yeah, sorry to the artist, but it's not really that good. But don't judge a box by its cover. Concordia Salsa is a big box expansion for the base game, and it contains a couple of things. It's a bit modular. It has salt as a new commodity. And what salt does is some of these cities on the board will be replaced by salt cities. Salt is a special resource. It's a wild card. It can be used as any other type of resource. You cannot buy and sell it at the market, so it doesn't have a monetary value, but and it's really expensive to build in a salt city. So the last time I played it, I just didn't bother because it was too prohibitive. But yeah, you can build in salt cities. That will generate salt, and that will, as I say, it's a wild card, and that's really useful because when you trade, you can only trade 2 different types of commodities. So it's not like you can go to the market and say, oh, I want to sell 2 of these, buy one of them, buy one of them, and buy one of them. No, you can only buy or sell 2 types of commodities. So having a salt is a wild card. It's just really, really useful. So yeah, that's salt. The other thing that it comes with is the forum board and the forum tiles. Now, a lot of people like these. A couple of people don't. I've played with them a few times and I do really like them. But basically, you start with one of the blue bordered ones, which is a permanent special ability for you, that's unique to you. So it gives the game a little bit of asymmetry. And also, whenever you play your Tribune card and get your cards back, depending on how many cards you've played, depends on which of these tiles you can pick up. And basically, you will be getting more forum tiles as the game goes on. The green bordered ones are one-off abilities. You discard them, throw them away, and you get the bonus that's printed on them. And the blue ones gives you more permanent abilities. So yeah, that's the forum tiles. I find them a nice addition to the game, but as I say, if you don't like them, you don't have to use them. There's a mini expansion as well, which Mark's got, which is 8 additional forum tiles. So if you do want everything for this game, you're going to have to hunt around and get all of these extra bits, but I'm sure they are available somewhere. The game also comes with 2 additional maps, Byzantium and Hispania. I don't believe there's any additional rules for these maps. They are just different layouts. And as I say, there is a link I mentioned in the show notes that tells you which map is best for different player counts. So you can use these maps just to shake up your game a bit and provide a slightly different experience. The Britannia map, again, another map. This offers a tighter play because there's only 23 cities split over 10 provinces. The Germania map is normal, that's 30 cities over 12 provinces, but there are castles, different starting positions, sea colonists moving along rivers. It basically just new options of how to play the game. Gallia, you'll be moving around the board. You only start with 1 land colonist and you're going to have to settle inside the harbour cities before you can start using your sea colonists. So again, that changes the rules up a little bit. Corsica is the tightest map ever published, and that is one that is voted on as basically being really good for the 2-player version. There's only 20 cities split over 8 provinces. So I say, all the maps can be played at all player counts, but you're going to have a different experience depending on the player counts. The Egypt map, basically you have the Nile and you have a yearly flood. I've played with this and I found that the flood tile thing, that didn't really work so well because it was nearly the end of the game by the time we got there. But also you can establish a trading post and get frankincense and stuff like that. That was quite interesting, the way that worked. And then the Crete map, this is a tight map. There's only 20 cities over 9 provinces, one with only a single city in it. And finally, Concordia Venus that Mark doesn't have, which means I don't have it here. But Concordia Venus according to BGG, is a re-implementation, whereas all of these other ones are expansions, so you need the base game. Concordia Venus is a kind of reboot of the game, so you don't need the base game to have Concordia Venus. It includes a 6th player colour, it's got team play rules as well, and it's got 4 maps included in the game. I am going to be picking up a copy of Concordia Venus later on in the year, and I'm looking forward to playing it, and I'm going to be doing a review of that probably, at some point later on this year once I've got it. So anyway, Concordia, if you've skipped to the end of this video, as I mentioned, masterpiece of a game, top 10 game for me, elegant, streamlined, almost never say no to it. Some people might think the game's a bit too light for me because I like heavy crunchy Euros, but sometimes I just want something with easy rules but good gameplay, and that's what this game is. Concordia, for me, fantastic game. Really enjoy it. Thank you very much again to all of my Patreon supporters for making this video possible. If you like this video and any of the other content that I create, please consider supporting me over at patreon.com/gaming rules. Until next time, take care and thanks for watching. Gaming Rules is proudly sponsored by Game Toppers, upgrading your gaming experience. Visit GameToppersLLC.com.